waves of Zarnok 7 were not like Earth's. They boiled under the twin suns, heavy with minerals and life that could melt steel. Vela stood on the edge of the surf, her green skin shimmering with moisture, watching the dark horizon. She was no ordinary alien girl. She was one of the Royal Scouts, trained to sense danger long before it reached their shores. For months, the beasts had been growing bold. Sea horrors from the deep, too large for even the battle pods to kill, had started surfacing near the cities. The council called it climate shift. Vela called it war. Something was waking them, and they were hungry. The screams from the southern cove had started 3 days ago. Her sister's outpost had gone silent. When they found the bones and blackened sand, Vela knew this was no storm. It was something older, something from the core of the ocean. Her people called it Varax, the eater of ships and gods. Now it was here. The tide pulled back in silence, then roared with force as the massive fin rose from the water. The creature's jaws opened, revealing glowing red light inside its throat. Even the sand sizzled where its breath touched. Vela stood frozen, her warrior blood chilled by pure instinct. The soldiers around her fled. The defense drones exploded before they could even lock on. This wasn't a beast they could fight with lasers. It was a force of nature. And Vela, though trained for war, had never seen anything so terrifying up close. Then came the human. Shirtless, scarred, and dragging 2 metal harpoons behind him. He walked into the surf like it was nothing. The waves hissed at his feet. The creature roared, but the human just smiled. His name was Derek. He came from Earth, a planet known for its dangerous predators and insane bravery. Vela watched in disbelief as Derek roared back at the monster. His voice echoed through the canyon-like cliffs of the coast. He didn't wait. He ran straight at the Varax, leapt onto its snout, and jammed one of the glowing harpoons into its eye. The ocean turned red instantly. The Varax thrashed. It whipped the waves into the air like liquid spears. But Derek held on, climbed its head, and shoved the second harpoon deep into its gill. Vela gasped as the beast began to tremble. No one not even her strongest generals had ever gotten that close. With a final scream, the creature collapsed. Its body hit the surf and sent a wave 50 feet high across the beach. The light in its mouth flickered and died. Derek climbed down, covered in blood and glowing ooze. Then, as the tide rolled back, he did something unthinkable. He carved a chunk of meat from the creature's side, cooked it with a small flame torch, and ate it like grilled lunch. Right there on the beach. Vela dropped to her knees, hands over her mouth. Her world's most feared beast, something their legends warned children about, was now food for a human. She didn't know what shocked her more, the fact that the beast was dead, or the fact that someone could eat it. Her people believed its blood caused madness. But Derek wiped his mouth, smirked, and waved at her like this was all just a normal day. Vela stood silent while the sea calmed around the dead Vhurax. The smell of scorched flesh and salt was heavy in the air. Her people had feared that creature for generations, and now a human had ended it with nothing more than muscle, metal, and fire. Derek walked toward her with slow, confident steps. His chest was marked with scars from past fights, his body covered in glowing blue blood. He tossed a small piece of meat to her feet. It sizzled in the hot sand. Vela didn't move. He looked at her face, at the shock frozen in her wide purple eyes. "Tough crowd," he muttered, then crouched down beside the meat and took another bite from his own slice. He chewed without fear, like he was eating a steak by a campfire back on Earth. "What are you?" Vela asked finally, her voice low. Derek shrugged and wiped his hand on his shorts. "Just hungry," he replied. That answer gave her no comfort. She had seen brave aliens before, but none that treated death like a meal. Soon the other scouts came from the hills. They had watched the battle from a distance. Some dropped their weapons. Some dropped to their knees. One of the commanders, a proud male named Grex, approached with his stun blade drawn. "You broke the treaty," Grex growled. "You were not supposed to enter the sacred waters." Derek stood up, stretched his back, and stared at the alien soldier like he was a fly. "That thing was killing your people. You want it back alive?" he said coldly. Grex hesitated. His blade lowered, then powered down. Everyone knew the truth. The creature had been unstoppable. Until now. Grex looked at Vela, his eyes burning. With pride and shame at once, he killed the Eater of Gods. "Let the gods decide his fate," he said. Derek laughed. "Good. I don't like politics. Just tell me what else needs killing." Vela stared at him as the waves crashed behind them. She had never met anyone like this. Someone who broke rules and lived as if death didn't exist. She wasn't sure if she feared him or admired him. That night, they returned to the city. The body of the Virax was left to sink with the tide. Derek walked beside Vela, dragging the creature's tooth as proof. It was longer than his arm and glowed faintly in the dark. No one in the city slept that night. Word spread fast. The alien who brought down the sea god was not a Zarnak warrior or council mage. It was a human outsider with no fear. Children whispered his name. Priests burned offerings in confusion. The queen herself requested to see him. The throne room was silent as Derek stepped in. High walls glowed with bioluminescent light. The queen sat tall in her glass chair, her golden armor shining with embedded stardust. Vela stood at her side, eyes fixed on Derek as he approached without bowing. "You ate the beast," the queen said softly. Derek nodded. It tasted like smoke and lightning, not bad. The council behind her murmured in disbelief. One of the elders dropped his scroll. The queen raised her hand to silence them. "You are not bound by our laws," she said. "But you are now bound by our eyes. Everywhere you go, they will watch you. Some will worship you. Others will wish you dead." Derek just grinned and crossed his arms. "I didn't come here for your throne," he said. "I came here because something's wrong with this planet. That beast wasn't acting normal. Something stirred it up. Something deeper." His voice echoed like a warning through the halls. Vela stepped forward. "He's right. That wasn't the only one. There are more rising. I can feel it." The queen looked at her with narrow eyes. "And you trust this human?" she asked. Vela looked at Derek, then back at her queen. She nodded without hesitation. The queen's face remained calm, but her fingers curled around the arms of her chair. "Then prepare a hunt," she said. "Give him access to the deep records. Let him see what we have kept hidden. If war is coming, let it begin with open eyes." The ancient records were stored deep beneath the Queen's citadel. Vela guided Derek through long halls carved from crystal and bone. Glowing runes pulsed softly along the walls, whispering in a language only her kind could understand. As they walked, Derek remained silent. His eyes moved sharply, scanning every corner. He had seen high-tech vaults before, but nothing like this. Zarnak history was alive. The walls were not just stone. They remembered what they had seen. Vela stopped at a gate made of black coral. She placed her hand on it. The gate responded with a low hum, then opened to reveal a dark chamber filled with floating memory shards. Each shard contained visions, sounds, and secrets from the past. She reached for one and held it between them. The shard glowed and showed a vision, a time before her people even stood upright. In the vision, great beasts roamed freely, and one massive creature ruled the oceans. Its body was wrapped in fire, and its hunger had no end. "This is what the Furax was born from," she said. "A spawn of the planet's core, sealed long ago by our ancestors. But the seal is weakening." Derek watched as the memory faded. "What broke it?" he asked. Vela picked up another shard. This one showed drills, explosions, and mining ships. Your kind did, she said. The Terran Mining Guild opened veins too deep. They disturbed the old blood. And now it's rising. Derek's jaw tightened. They never told us this. We thought this world was just rich with rare ore. No one said it was alive. He clenched his fists. We've been poking as sleeping. God with a stick. Another shard showed something worse. Not just beasts waking, but corruption spreading. Forests blackening, rivers boiling. A sickness growing inside the planet itself. It wasn't just about the monsters, it was about the planet's survival. We need to stop the mining, Derek said. Vela nodded. But they won't listen. They only listen to profit. Derek turned away from the shards. Then we give them something they can't ignore. We show them what's coming. They emerged from the vault with new purpose. The Queen gave Derek permission to lead a small strike team. Vela was ordered to guide him through the wild regions. Deep roots where more creatures were rising. Time was running out. The first stop was the Scorched Basin, a volcanic stretch where no Zarnok had returned alive in years. Derek stood at the edge of the cliffs, wind howling around him. Below, rivers of molten rock moved like glowing snakes. They descended carefully. Vela moved swiftly along narrow paths, her body made for this terrain. Derek followed with strong footing, leaping from stone to stone. Behind them, the sky darkened with smoke. Hours passed before they found signs. Deep claw marks on obsidian rocks. Half-eaten carcasses of lava beasts. And in the distance, a massive shape moving beneath the earth, like a shadow waiting to break. Through, it's under us, Derek said. He knelt and pressed his palm to the ground. The heat was intense, but he focused. It's hunting upward. It smells the cities. Vela drew her blade and narrowed her eyes. Then we bring it out before it reaches them. She took a vial from her belt and smashed it on the rocks. The scent of blood and fire filled the air. It was a challenge. A call. The ground began to tremble and a roar erupted from below. Something massive was coming. The creature burst from the ground like a volcano of flesh and flame. Its body was armored in stone, eyes glowing with burning light. It was not like the Verax. It was faster, angrier, and had dozens of jagged mouths across its chest. Derek didn't wait. He charged, drawing 2 new harpoons laced with electric cores. Vela circled, slashing at its legs to distract it. The beast roared, flames pouring from its open mouths, melting rock as it moved. Derek leapt onto its back, driving 1 harpoon into the base of its neck. Sparks flew. The creature screamed. Vela rolled under it, stabbing up into its gut. Lava-colored. Blood sprayed over her armor. With a final roar, Derek drove the second harpoon into the beast's heart. The explosion lit the canyon. The monster collapsed, twitching as fire poured from its body. Derek fell beside it, coughing from smoke. But grinning as always, Vela rushed to his side and pulled him away from the heat. "Are you insane?" she asked. He smiled through the blood and ash, only on days ending in Y. She didn't know what that meant, but it made her smile too. The crater still glowed behind them as Derek and Vela climbed back to the ridge. Smoke drifted over the rocks while ash clung to their skin. The body of the second beast was already cooling, its fire dying with the sunset. They set up camp on high ground. Vela watched as Derek cleaned his weapons without a word. His hands moved fast, trained by habit. She studied his face. Dirt, blood, and sweat marked his skin, but his eyes held steady focus. "You could have died back there," she said. Derek nodded once, then pulled out a small food capsule from his pouch. "I still might, but not today." He bit into it calmly and offered her one. She accepted it without a word. The stars came out slowly. Twin moons rose over the valley, lighting the dead beast like a black statue. Vela sat beside Derek with her knees drawn close. "There are more," she whispered. "I can feel them moving under the land." He glanced at her. "Then we dig them up before they dig us out." She looked into his eyes, seeing no fear. No hesitation, just a fire that refused to die. Vela didn't understand it, but it made her feel safer. At dawn they moved again. Their next destination was the glass wastes, a ruined field where an old mining ship had once exploded. The blast had left the ground melted smooth. The place shimmered with unnatural light, dangerous to touch. Their boots crunched against the glass floor, shards cracked under their steps. Strange winds howled between the crystal spires. Nothing lived here anymore, yet Vela could hear whispers in her mind. "There," Derek said. He pointed toward a mound rising in the distance. It pulsed faintly, as if breathing. The land around it was twisted, scorched in a perfect circle. Something was waiting beneath the crust. Vela drew her blade, and Derek readied his spear. As they approached, the mound split open with a deep groan. Black smoke poured out. Then a shape rose, a creature made of molten bones and sharp crystal armor. It floated without legs, hovering above the ground. It screeched, and the sound cut through the air like knives. Vela winced. Blood trickled from her ears. Derek didn't stop. He charged forward, dodging glowing spikes launched from the beast's ribs. One spear flew past his head, slicing his cheek. Vela spun through the smoke, slashing upward and drawing sparks from the creature's belly. The beast turned toward her with burning eyes, but Derek slammed into its side, forcing it back. The ground shook from the impact. The creature responded with a shockwave, hurling them both across the glass field. Vela rolled, cut and bruised, but alive. Derek hit the edge of a crystal ridge, blood on his lips, but he stood quickly. "I'm fine. Keep moving," he shouted. They regrouped and attacked again. Vela jumped high, landing strikes on the beast's neck. Derek climbed its back, using crystal spines as steps. Together, they struck its heart with a blast charge. Derek planted deep in its chest. The explosion shattered the creature. Glass and fire rained around them. Vela lay still, chest rising fast. Derek limped over, grabbing her hand and pulling her to her feet. "We're not done yet," he said. Once. The battlefield cooled. Vela stared at the shattered remains. "Each one of these things is worse than the last. They're not just monsters, they're learning." Derek frowned and nodded. "Then we need to move faster. We're not hunting beasts. We're fighting something smarter." They took what samples they could and returned to the nearest Zarnok outpost. Scientists gathered to study the remains. The crystals pulsed with energy. One of the researchers gasped. "These things are feeding on planetary energy itself. They're draining the world to grow stronger." The Queen sent word immediately. A summit was called. All cities would send leaders. Vela stood in the war chamber beside Derek. She had never seen so many officials in one room. Some looked at the human with awe, others with fear. Derek stepped forward. "If we wait, this world dies. I didn't come to lead, but I will fight. And I'll keep fighting until these things are nothing but smoke and bones. But I need your help. All of you." The summit chamber grew silent after Derek spoke. His words struck deeper than any royal command. The alien leaders looked at each other, some angry, some afraid. But none could deny the truth. Their world was breaking, and this human was the only one spilling blood to stop it. The Queen stood and faced the crowd. Her voice was steady. "We can no longer hide behind walls and prayers. The enemy is not in the stars. It is beneath us, growing stronger every day. If we do nothing, we will be buried in our own soil." The decision was made. A joint strike team was formed. Zarnok elites, scouts, engineers, and Derek at the front. Vela was assigned to him again. Some said it was because she understood him best. Others whispered it was because she trusted him blindly. They traveled to the Deep Scar, a great canyon cut into the planet's crust. It had once been a mining zone, now sealed after too many workers vanished without a trace. The deeper they went, the more the ground trembled. Something waited in the black. Their suits were reinforced against pressure and heat. Glowing visors lit the narrow paths. The canyon pulsed with strange energy. Creatures hissed from cracks. Shadows moved just outside the light. Derek gripped his blades tighter with each step. They found the first altar carved in the wall, an ancient symbol of sacrifice. Vela read the markings. Our ancestors once locked something here, not with chains, with life. Blood was used to seal it. Thousands of lives. The walls began to shake. A deep rumble echoed through the canyon. Rocks fell. One scout screamed. As the floor split beneath him, the team formed a circle. Weapons ready. Lights aimed forward. And then, from the abyss, the final monster came. It was not like the others. It was massive, yes, but it had a shape that changed as it moved. Claws turned to blades. Its skin flowed like liquid metal. Eyes blinked open and shut across its body. It roared without a mouth, a sound that made bones shiver. Vela stepped back. It's not a beast. It's a weapon. A living weapon made by the planet itself. Derek didn't argue. He was already moving, dodging, flanking, striking where he could. But nothing slowed it down. Lasers failed. Blades snapped. One soldier was caught and crushed before he could scream. The creature absorbed energy, growing taller, wider. The walls of the canyon cracked from the pressure. Vela knew they couldn't defeat it in the usual way. Derek shouted over the noise. There's a power source below. That's what it's feeding from. We take that out, it dies. Vela nodded. But it's under the floor. Buried beneath. Solid stone. Derek smiled coldly and lifted a high-charge bomb. Covering each other, they moved around the beast, drawing its attention. Vela slashed at its tail, while Derek ran toward a narrow opening beneath its bulk. He dove in, landing hard but alive. The energy source glowed below him, pulsing like a living heart. He planted the bomb, twisted the charge, and set the timer. As he turned to leave, part of the ceiling collapsed. Rocks pinned his leg. He growled in pain but didn't call for help. Above, Vela could feel something was wrong. She turned and dove after him, dodging falling rubble and bursts of fire. She reached him just as the timer clicked down. Derek looked at her with calm eyes. You should have stayed up there. She grabbed his arm and pulled with all her strength. They barely escaped as the explosion ripped through the canyon. Wave of fire followed them up the shaft. The beast screamed above, its body folding inward, melting from within. The power feeding it was gone. It collapsed like wet ash. The team was thrown clear by the blast. Dust and stone rained down. For a moment, everything was silent. Then Vela opened her eyes. Derek lay beside her, breathing hard, covered in burns and cracked armor. She touched his chest and felt a heartbeat. Around them, the Zarnok warriors stood slowly, injured but alive. The monster was gone. The earth was still. For the first time in months, there was no rumble beneath their feet. No shadow waiting in the deep. The skies over Zarnok 7 turned quiet. For the first time in years. The ground didn't tremble and the oceans didn't boil. Across the cities, people stepped outside and listened. The silence was a gift they had forgotten. The monster was gone. The energy source had been destroyed. All that remained in the deep scar was cooling rubble and faint smoke. Vela sat on a rock near the crater's edge, watching the horizon while medics treated Derek behind her. He was alive. Burned, bruised, but alive. The healers had never seen a human survive that much internal pressure and heat. Yet Derek woke up with a grunt and asked for water and something to eat. The warriors nearby couldn't stop staring at him, the queens. Ship landed by noon. She stepped out without her guards and walked straight to Derek's side. The crowd parted without a word. She knelt beside him and offered a nod of deep respect. "You've done more than save a world," she said. You reminded us what it means to fight without fear, to act without waiting for permission. You turned the tides with nothing but strength and purpose. Derek looked at her and shrugged. I was just hungry, he muttered with a tired smile. Vela laughed for the first time in days. A real laugh, not the nervous kind. The queen rose and addressed the crowd. This human has no title among us, but from this day forward, he will be known as Guardian of the Core. Celebrations spread across the cities. Fire banners rose in the sky. Dancers moved in the streets. But Derek didn't care about titles or honors. He cared about stopping the monsters. He cared about those who couldn't fight back. That was enough for him. Vela stayed close as the days passed. She helped him heal. She brought food, trained beside him, and told him more about her people. The other warriors called them a strange pair, alien and human, bonded by battle and survival. One night, under the glow of the twin moons, they sat by the beach where it had all started. The sea was calm. The air was warm. Vela looked at him and spoke softly. Do you ever think about going back to your world? Derek watched the waves in silence for a while. Then he shook his head. Earth never felt like home. Out here, fighting something real, with people who don't back down, that feels right to me. She nodded, understanding more than she expected. He picked up a small piece of blackened coral from the shore. You know, this place tried to kill me a dozen times, but I don't hate it. I think it just needed someone to remind it how to fight. Vela smiled and leaned closer. You didn't just fight for us, she said. You reminded us who we were before fear took over. You changed everything. Derek threw the coral into the sea and stood up slowly, stretching with a wince. They walked side by side along the beach. No guards, no orders, no monsters in the distance. Just two warriors who had survived the end of the world together. The tide rolled in and out, peaceful and steady like the heartbeat of a planet reborn. Far beneath the surface, the last spark of ancient energy flickered once, then died. No more screams, no more shadows. Zarnuk 7 was safe. Because a reckless human chose not to run. And because an alien warrior chose to believe in him.